Welcome to NLTV was. Aji 25 of June de TC Conference Hall Dimapur de Samvidhan Hatya Diwas laga ekta program organized crazy aru itu to kini media sigishuguli to commemorating the emergency of 1975 aru itu la opor the keynote address to Dr Amongla N Jamir, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Dimapur Government College pa itu the emergency of 1975 la opor the keynote address diwole ase to IB itu program la opor olop details pa sai so.
So on the midnight of June 24, 1975, an emergency was declared in India under the leadership of Indira Gandhi under the Commerce Ministry. Now, you all know what happens after emergencies are declared. So this emergency, the duration of this emergency was nearly 2 years. And we all know, as I said, Article 352. So whenever emergencies are declared in the country, what happens? What entails? First, the press is terribly censored. Be it a government, be it private. So the censorship of the press is paramount. So as I was looking it up, the Indian Express, one of the oldest newspapers, the Statesman of another very old newspaper, Media House, they both ran blank pages that day. The next day, they are supposed to have a grand, a very informative, evocative article, obviously, but they ran blank. Why? Because it was a sign of protest for stiffening their voice. At the same time, in Delhi that night, there was extreme power outages. So they could not run the press machine together with that problem of press censorship. So as a protest, they ran blank pages. That's one entailment, one problem that will happen when emergencies are declared. Another problem is, obviously, civil liberties, our fundamental rights, right to life, right to liberty, right to freedom of expression, everything, it gets curtailed terribly. So that's the first casualty again, in fact the prime casualty. And the third one, which comes after that, is the arrest of political opponents, especially that year. Arrest of political opponents of the Congress party. So I can always tell you some names. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was imprisoned. Now L.K. Advani was imprisoned. Morarji Desai was imprisoned. J. Narayan Prakash was imprisoned. J. Narayan was imprisoned. So those people, and George Fernandez, of course, they were all imprisoned and sent to Tihar jail. And they stayed for quite a long time because it's nearly 2 years. Thousands of political opponents that were considered to be threat to Indira Gandhi, they were all imprisoned and sent to the jails all over the country. That was the immediate fallout. Now, the point here is that this emergencies was not really India by then, because we already had two emergencies. One in 1962 when China invaded India, Indo-China War, and the second one was in 1971 when Pakistan and India went for war, Indo-Pak War. So those two emergencies were already there, fresh in the minds of the Indian citizens. So I believe the Indian citizens of that era were quite used to having emergencies slammed upon them because of the very volatile situation here and there. So, but then something is very different here. What was different in 1975 is, because in both two emergencies there were wars. It's for us to see. But in 1975, there was no war breathing down on the backs of the government, on the citizens. There was no internal emergencies, no financial emergency, no external aggression, no internal upheavals. What was it? That is the point which we come to, which we are understanding today. So, so what is it then? What exactly happened in 1975? So I was thinking actually this morning. Do you have an equivalent word for the word alpha male? These days we use the word alpha male. Do we have a word for the alpha female maybe? Right? So maybe it wasn't. So 1975 was a period of alpha female tone of Indira Gandhi because of her personality. Is it hunger for politics, for power, and all the things are there. So now it's not. So it's a yes or no, yes and no kind of an answer, because definitely power struggle was there, is there, so that can be one of the reasons. But most importantly, which we fail to understand, which you understand, but many people don't understand, is that there were a series of events that rocked the government to this level. Some series of events. Now, what were the events? So one event can be the cancellation of the privy purses. So we all know that we had royalties before the independence of India. So we had this Hyderabadi royals, we had Tripuri royals, Madam Ross India and their family, and we had Patauti, Sai Patauti's mother, Tiger Patauti, their family. So all these people were royals, and they were compelled to keep up their royalty, their crowns, because of independence. You know that, right? So they were being given a stipend, money by the government of India even after independence for a very long time, because of that status. So just before this 1975, well, Indira Gandhi didn't want that to happen anymore. So she cancelled the privy purses privilege of the royal families in India. That created a little storm in the elite circle of India, I believe. Maybe the government will not have much to say on that, and it doesn't affect us so much. But to do with the elite circle, I believe it must have created a little storm. Very much, okay? And another reason for the 1975 emergency that well done with this was maybe because of the nationalization of the 14 banks, including the Central Bank of India, for example. So the nationalization of these very successful banks, in fact, by the government was constituted arbitrary. And that affected now the middle class. The first affected the elite, now the second, the nationalization of the banks affected maybe the middle class, maybe now we will know what happened, right? And the last one, I believe, will be the frequent tussles between judiciary and the government. So that is the Samvidhan Hatya Diwas, murder of democracy and constitution. So Indira Gandhi, to carry forward her agendas, she used to issue amendments to the government, to the constitution. Amendments are changes in the constitution, we all know that. So whenever she used to issue constitutional amendments on selfish interests, then the Supreme Court used to cancel it. Everything. She will issue, government will issue, she will cancel. The court will cancel. So that frequent tussle between the judiciary and Indira Gandhi really came to a very dangerous situation. Dangerous enough to promulgate this particular emergency. Okay, so just as a history, since you all know, we had this Indo-Pak War 1971. So that time, India emerged victorious. So why did the Congress government went to this extent? By declaring emergency, by running roughshod over the liberties of the people, by imprisoning leaders left and right in the jails. Why did they do it? So, why did they do it? Then give me some, I've given you some reasons, but again, why? So maybe what I feel is that war, 1971 war, which India was victorious, that also made the government a little arrogant. Maybe. That made the government a little arrogant, the Congress government, and when arrogance comes in, they will try to right roughshod. So maybe that also played a role in making Indira Gandhi maybe a little too big for her own shoes, maybe in that context. So, but here is something for all of us to know is that that is a very dangerous move. Because the citizens and the voters will punish any arrogant government, whether it's here or Assam or wherever. Arrogancy of the government is always dealt with by the electorate after some time. So 1975, the emergency happened. People were not happy, left and right. And in 1977, when the general elections happened, Congress was kicked out of power, very miserably. So for the first time in the Indian history, a non-Congress government came to power, where morality beside comes to the picture. So it's for all of us to know that it's when we write roughshod over civil liberties, then the voters will make you pay, will make the government pay, maybe after some time. So Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So now the point of war comes again. So when the Kargil war happened, the mid-1990s, it was under the leadership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He did a pretty good job. We won the Kargil war. And with that victory under their wings, Atal Bihari Vajpayee came back to power the third time in 1997. So I want to make a connection here between wars and governments. If a war is successfully curated and conducted and is victorious, then that government under whom that war took place usually comes back to power. Usually. Might not be mathematically 100% correct if you look at the stats, but it's somehow correlated. And so if Narendra Modi conducted a successful anti-terrorist operation after the Mumbai attacks, 26/11 attacks, it was a feather to his cap. He came back with a towering majority as the next government, right? So the wars and civil unrest and wars and victory of a government is very much correlated here. So I remember my mom and dad and then in that era discussing whenever there are emergencies and offices are open longer time, 9 to 5 p.m. job becomes a reality. People come regularly from the peon to the top notch. They come regularly. Files are moved efficiently, tip-top like that. So Nagas, we have a very negative, very fearful psychosis of emergencies. So whenever I think about emergencies, then I usually think about very grim, dark green army trucks rolling into the mountains of Naga Hills, rolling into the mountains and leading to imprisonments and hartal and whatnot. That's the very clear memory I have. Maybe a fear psychosis created by so many reasons. So on the hindsight, I was thinking, if that is so, then again there's also a good side, and that is, if emergencies are there, then offices are more regular. Office hours are more regular. Files get moved, and people are more efficient. That's a good thing. And in fact, that's what G.D. Birla said when he was asked about the emergency. He said it was a good time because files moved. The government was very efficient. That's what he said. So so to conclude, every day we see the murder of the Constitution in the government, in the society. Every day we see the murder of democracy. in small scale, in the big scale. We see it, we ignore it. So this is something new actually. You can really think about it. The only thing is that we become sensitized to the wrongdoings, and we become a little maybe conventional, so sensitized to what is going around, and we think everything is going well. But sometimes we really critically think that it's almost like 1975 emergency sometimes, especially when we don't have an opposition government in the state, etc. etc.
Nagaland TV, Sop Manulaga Awas. Watch us live on Geo TV and on your television sets as well. For Dimapur viewers, we are on channel number 994 in Global Chapter, and Kohima and Mokokchung viewers, switch to channel number 138 on Hornbill Digital. For all news and updates, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.